So, first of all, how are you and where are you doing this interview from?
I'm currently in the studio space at Bristol Old Vic, the Western Studio, where we are about to open Cheeky Little Brown, which is a co-production with Tiata, fahodzi and Bristol Old Vic and Belgrade Theatre.
Ah, exciting. So to start, could you tell us a bit more about Cheeky Little Brown by Nkena Akuna, which is about to go on tour, I understand.
Yes, so the show's about to open in Bristol and then we'll be here until the 14th of October and then we'll go on tour to Belgrade, Derby, where else are we going? My brain's gone slightly. But it's a beautiful show. I
Mhm.
having now seen it, we had a small audience in. It's a really funny show about a 25-year-old woman who's in London and she's basically gate crashed her best friend's party because they've got some stuff that needs to be resolved. So we watch her trying to have a sense of where their friendship is at and also trying to reconcile herself with some things that have happened between them and her identity and her and how society views her really. So and all of that is done through music and song and yeah, it's quite a beautiful piece of writing and that's why it felt really important that as a leading British African heritage theatre company, Nkena Akuna, who's the writer, is British Nigerian, and we
Mhm.
just wanted to put this piece of work out in the world and for audiences to meet Lady, who's the character at the centre of the story.
All right, sounds like a lot of fun and not like something that I've seen before either. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Is it coming to London at all?
Well, with it's always there's these plans, and we're hoping that through some partnerships we'll be able to bring it to London next year. But this first leg of the tour, I think once audiences are seeing it, and
Yeah,
or it's always interesting with the London thing because I was a regional writer, if you like. I lived in
yeah.
Britain for over 20 years and this is where my career started and it's where I was
Mm,
an artist. So I'm very passionate that regional audiences get to see work,
yeah.
well, by Black artists, but also about that Black experience as well. I think that's really important. So it feels great that we're opening in areas and in regions that maybe that work isn't as populated. So so it's really exciting in that way.
And would you say that a London audience is different to a regional audience?
I don't know if they're different, but I think that the expectation about work is very, as an artist, writer, director who spent many years of my career outside of London, I think that expectation in terms of the work is very different and people are much more familiar with Black stories in London
Yeah,
it
that's true.
and there's so much more choice and actually what's great is to take work like this to audiences who are just so hungry to see it and not they don't get it every week. There aren't five shows
Mm,
with Black female characters at the center of them,
yeah,
and so yeah, and that way I think sometimes the expectations are different.
yeah, I would. That makes sense. And so, what's your take on it as the director?
In terms of the story,
Yeah,
um uh, there's always things that you um aspire to do as a director and I've always been quite interested, particularly since the pandemic, post
mm,
pandemic. I've been really interested, and also as an artistic director who's programming work,
yeah,
what what do audiences need right now? And I think the thing that sits at the heart of the story for me that just makes me excited about it is the fact that it's funny. It's like laugh out loud funny, and
brilliant.
it's funny in a way that I think particularly global majority audiences will be able to lean into and see themselves in,
Hmm.
and that's really important. So actually the humor balanced with the pain that sits under all of that, as we know,
Okay.
humor hardly ever happens without pain sitting somewhere underneath it.
Yeah, this
So
is true.
that's what excites me, you know, that the texture of that.
Thank you. So, as you know, this interview is about your role as artistic director primarily, and as you are artistic director of Tiata fahodzi, could you tell us a little bit more about Tiata fahodzi, which is currently celebrating a 25-year milestone for people that don't know?
Yeah, well, Tiata fahodzi was founded in 1997, and it's, you know, the work that it's been doing. It was one of the first companies that, as a writer based even in Bristol, I remember emailing them and saying, "Hi, this is who I am." Really early in my career, I hadn't done that with any other companies, you know, but because it had that very clear label of serving that British African heritage and experience, it felt like the place to go. And I guess
Mm,
since I became artistic director like 2.5 years ago, I've really wanted that to be what we're about, to be a home for artists who feel that they might not have a home in other theatre companies. And
yeah,
so the approach has been very artist centered for the last couple of years. We've been looking and talking and inviting artists into our work. I mean, even with this piece of work, we've created something called the TF Artist Village.
yeah.
So we've invited artists, local artists, to us, but also artists from across the regions that we're touring to come along and be part of open rehearsals to see the work
That's nice.
early stages so that they can help us inform that relationship with audiences and that
Yeah.
relationship with marketing so that it's not just a one-way conversation. And so we've invited them into the rehearsal process in the hope that they'll bring something, a perspective that the company might not have or might not see. So and that's artists from across the board, you know. And
Mm,
this play is a play about queer identity as well.
right.
And that,
Okay.
again, I don't know how many plays are out there that are really speaking to that
Mm,
Black British female queer identity at the moment. So it's for us as a company, the focus for me has been about the artist for a very long time, and that feels still really important. So we have a number of initiatives and projects in the company that really hone that down. We have a cohort of artists,
mhm.
6 artists every year that join the company. They're The whole point of the project is not to make a piece of work, but to
Oh, okay.
get to know themselves as artists, get to talk to us about what they're passionate about what they want to be doing, about where they're at as in their practice, and for us as a company to be that help and that support and that, you know, that group of people that you go, oh, I've been thinking about this. Is this possible? And where possible to look around and see where funding might be available
Mhm.
or to mentor, to showcase. So, yeah, I think Tiata remains a place that for British African heritage artists, they can call home and we can be that first point of call for them.
Yeah, it sounds very nurturing. So would you say that that's how Tiata fahodzi stands out from other theatre companies in your
Absolutely.
experience?
Yeah, absolutely. We put care at the heart of everything that we do. I
Mm,
know that a lot of the artists that are coming to the company sometimes, and that's both artists that are on the stage, but also creative teams that are behind the stage, and also the people who are writing plays and directing plays. A lot of them come to the company having felt either disrespected or harmed by the industry already.
yeah, yeah.
Part of our work is also to rebuild that, you know, rebuild confidence, to nurture that care, to create the systems that allow
Mm,
that care to be visible to them, and absolutely to give them respect for what they bring to the wider theatre ecology. So without that care, we just wouldn't be able to do the work that we do.
yeah. And what would you say of Tiata Fahodzi's major achievements are from the last 25 years?
Oh, I mean, apart from some of the brilliant productions that we've put on, I feel like the company has been instrumental in so many careers, either whether that's actors, directors, or writers. I think that in so many people that have passed through the company as part of their career path and part of their ambitions.
Yeah.
And absolutely the biggest impact the company's had. There's very few actors who have not in some way had, of British African heritage, who have not in some way had contact with the company. And, even a writer like Nkenna Akuna, Nkenna is based in the States, but still is a British writer. And it's for us to find that talent, and I think finding the talent and nurturing the talent and looking for the spaces to make work by that talent and for that talent is what the company still stands for, and it's been doing for 25 years, and certainly under my tenure will continue to do.
And the current season is called Coming Home. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Oh, Coming Home is very much what I feel like encapsulates all the lessons that I've learned over the last 2 years.
Okay.
I think I think there's something very important in that most people who have some kind of diasporic experience, always have another home, whether that's a home they're connected to through their grandparents or their parents, or so for the word home has such a broad term. And so looking for those stories and those opportunities where we can tell the stories of what home means to people. So home might be a theatre company, but home might also be how do I speak to an audience about my Kenyan heritage, or or a company that values the importance of telling the stories of our grandparents and of our history. So Coming Home also can be about coming home to yourself. So how do you as an artist within the context of contemporary theatre find a way back to yourself and what you actually want to be doing and the stories you want to be telling? So the idea of coming home is as personal as it is global, and that's what we wanted to really capture in terms of this season. And so again, I feel like Cheeky Little Brown is absolutely an example of that. Here's a British Nigerian writer who's not currently based in the country, but she's come home to make this piece of work.
Let's go into the day-to-day life of an artistic director. What are the main challenges?
Oh, it's there's so many. I think it's I don't really even see my job as challenges.
Okay.
I think what you're constantly trying to discern is what stories the world needs to hear. And then the challenges of running a theatre company today, and most of those challenges are financial. This pandemic, so much has changed in terms of the resources that are available, way in which partnerships work now in terms of touring.
Okay.
A small touring company, and I have to say, if there is one area that I would put under a challenge, it's probably funding, because as a Black-led organization, attracting the kind of philanthropic giving that other small touring companies have access to is by far the biggest challenge, because there's a whole mix of reasons why it's challenging.
Mm-hmm.
A company, a white-led company of exactly the same size and profile will have access to a kind of individual giving that this company will never have access to. That's
Right.
the inequality at the very heart of what we do. And
Right.
that's something,
Okay.
as an artistic director, I'm constantly having to find a way around. And I would say it's something that the whole theatre industry
Okay.
needs to now seriously look at and look at how to change.
Yeah. And what do you enjoy most about it?
The art, I mean, the art, I always say the triple A's is what I enjoy about my job. You
Okay.
know, when you go to a music festival and
Yeah.
sometimes you get a triple A access pass, you know, and that means
Oh,
that,
access all areas.
yeah, and then you can get to like be in absolutely any area and
Oh,
occasionally
that's
bump
pretty
into
cool. Yeah.
someone famous or someone you know. So for me, it's that AAA card. It's the art, it's the audiences, and it's also, in a way, the ability to put action to your words.
So is it necessary?
Okay.
So do you have to be directing and an artistic director at the same time, or is that just, yeah, is that normal?
Well, I
You
mean,
do both.
I think one of the kind of shocks about me becoming an artistic director was because I was primarily known as a playwright. And
Yeah.
so there aren't many playwrights who are artistic directors in this country. I think
Mm,
on the last count is about 5 or 6.
okay.
And most artistic directors come from a directing, a like strong
Oh,
directing.
I see. So it's a natural
And
sort of
yeah, it's a natural
transition.
progression.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
I've been directing for nearly 8 years now, but that's not been the primary focus of my career, if you like. So
Yeah.
when I got the job as artistic director, people were quite shocked because there are just not that many playwrights who then
Yeah.
take that path. So I love directing. I love being in the rehearsal room. I love all of that. But I'm still primarily an artist, which is a
Hmm.
very strange thing to say.
Yeah.
Uh, so I kind of sit with 3 hats. I'm an artist that knows what it is to have a relationship
Yeah.
production in that sense. I'm a director who knows how to have a relationship with artists in that sense. And
Mm.
then I'm an artistic director who also has a completely different relationship with both the artist directors, the creative teams, you know. So it's a triple A, all access, all areas, bring it on.
But isn't that quite, but also isn't that a challenge within itself because you're obviously wearing 3 different hats at all times. So how do you
Yeah,
manage that?
I don't know. I mean, it's maybe it's because I'm so used to navigating also a number of identities, you know. I think
Okay.
that that's what it is. It's my whole life I've been
Mm.
navigating several identities all at
Hmm.
the same time, you know,
Yeah.
or like, you know, I wasn't born in this country, so the first identity I had was as an African, a Nigerian, and then I
Hmm.
came to the UK and I was suddenly an immigrant, and
Yeah.
then, you know, I get my citizenship, I'm suddenly British, and
Uh,
then, you know, it just
it's a
goes
lot.
on and on
Yeah.
and on and on. And, you know, at some point I became a mother. That's a whole identity of itself.
This is true.
I'm a
Yeah.
woman. I'm dark skinned, you know. I'm so there's just like, so I take the job in the same way I take my real life, you know. We can't singularly look at ourselves, and I can't singularly look at theatre. I look at theatre
Mm.
from so many different perspectives, and mainly, you know, I always say to people, I think the hardest thing has been actually that I didn't come from an arty background, and
Hmm.
so, and I still find it very difficult to talk about theatre in isolation of the cultural and societal context in which we are doing this thing.
Fair
And
enough.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so the collusion of all those things is probably just so ingrained in my DNA now. I don't
Just
even think
comes
about.
naturally to you.
Yeah, I don't
So,
even think about it anymore.
so were there any artistic directors that you looked to for inspiration when you embarked on the role?
Oh, I mean, the role came as a huge, huge, huge surprise. It was just a
Mm,
moment of pause that I had in my life. And
yeah,
whilst I was having that pause, this job came up, and it's like, oh, I've never really thought about what that
yeah.
might mean, or what that, so um but there are definitely people I consider. They probably don't think they're my mentors, but
Okay.
they definitely are my mentors. Indu at the Kiln Theatre has been a huge
Yeah.
influence on me. I've definitely aspired to how she leads and how she makes work. And
Hmm.
Josette at Central,
Okay.
uh, just love how real she is. And so there's definitely Black women and Globe majority women in the industry that I've been looking at over the years, going, oh God, okay, that's how you do it.
I
And
love
so
that. That's great.
yeah, it's important. I think it's not just that, but it's really important that we say it all the time, don't we? Like how sometimes we're paying people reverence too late. You know, my first ever contact with playwriting as a thing was with Winston Pinnock, and
Okay. Yeah.
that has influenced so much of who I am and what I write.
Really? Okay.
So, and we have to give people their dues,
When they're still here. Yeah.
when they're still here, and also
Yeah.
be really aware of the shoulders that we stand on. Like being an artistic director today as a Black woman, or Globe majority leader is so different because of the work that people like Indu were doing. I mean, you cannot ignore that.
That's really good. Um, yeah. And fine. I've got two more questions. One is a bit more practical, like what is the typical day for you as an artistic director? And then finally, tips that you would give to someone that wants to be brave and take on that role.
Take the lead.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my typical day, I try really hard within the team and for myself to talk about care, and to talk about I you know I read something recently that basically debunked the idea of work-life balance for me, so I
Oh,
don't
what was
use that
that?
term anymore.
Oh,
It
okay.
basically said there should be absolutely no competition or comparison between work and life.
What?
Life is it. Life is it. Work is something we do. Life is it.
Okay.
So I try and make sure that I start every day reminding myself of that. Like life is it. I'm not trying to find a balance between work and life,
Okay.
because when that day comes, it's not work that I'm going to be thinking about.
No. Yeah, that's true. That is very
I'm going
true.
to be thinking about life.
Yeah.
So um where I can, I try and start my day as kind of relaxed as I can.
Okay.
In busy times, I will obviously be on the phone from about 8 o'clock in the morning. So,
Yikes.
and they look very different when you're in rehearsal from when you're just doing your day-to-day job. In
Yeah.
rehearsal, I have to still continue to support the team whilst they're doing their work. So the 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 are all about just making sure I'm checking in with the team, the
Right.
TFT, everything that we need to be doing as a company is in place. I come into rehearsals, we start rehearsals, my lunch times are full of meetings, and
Sorry.
uh, But that's you know, that's what it's like at its optimum, and luckily it happens when you're most excited about work, you know. But day to day, I think it's about always really checking in on the humans that are part of the company. That's really what I'm still very much interested in. The humans that work for us, the humans that help other people to get to where they want to be in their careers, you know, and just making sure that sense of humanness stays within what we do effectively. So there's always a lot of meetings. You're constantly having meetings with potential co-producers, meetings with partners, meetings with funders, meetings with artists. Those are my favorite days. And just sitting and hearing people talk about their art and their work is definitely my favorite bit of what I do. And that pretty much goes on till about 6:30, 7, and then, as you know,
you'll go home and make a lovely meal.
Yeah. And then the days that I'm not doing that, I'm at press nights, and you know, I'm making sure supporting artists who aren't necessarily part of the TF thing, or you know, directors who need that support, and you know, just the ability to champion each other. So those press nights really about that. I think everyone's kind of understood now that sense of networking that maybe used to happen it's not about that. It's about people seeing each other, and
supporting.
All of us once in a while, once in a while, seeing each other and going, yeah, I see you.
Well done.
I see you doing your thing, you know. I see you trying to make this thing work, Sophia. I see you doing it for a really long time. I see the hard work. I see why you're doing it. You know, so it's a lot about that. It's just, so that's when the job feels good. You know, it feels like, yeah, I see the people who are doing the work and who want to do the work and who want to grow through the work as well, because we're all growing through it all, you know.
Yeah. And then finally, a couple of tips.
A couple of tips is, don't ever apply to do anything that you are not truly passionate about.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean that. Like, you know, we all have to balance that. We always have to make the balance. And it's a bit of advice that someone gave me really early on as a writer. It's like, start of a process or job, decide if you're doing it for the rent or if you're doing it for the heart. Okay. But when it comes to your day job, that you have to get up every day, 7 in the morning, go to, especially a job like an artistic director job, where you are also then getting ideas and then scrabbling to find the funding to make those ideas happen. You've got to be passionate about the thing that you want to lead, because it just makes the job 10 times harder if you're not. I mean, I don't even know what it would be like to be running Tiata, fahodzi, and not be so passionate about why I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
You know, so that is my absolute first tip. Like, you've got to be sure that you are passionate about that company, about what it stands for.
Yeah, the ethos. Yeah.
The ethos. And I guess that leads on to my second tip, because I think that, you know, it's very difficult in theatre at the moment to feel sometimes that things have value, or we're all trying to sort of come back to this place where we feel like the industry is really working for all of us again. And I guess that the way I've held on to that, and the way is to really know what your values are.
Okay.
You know, really know what you stand for. Because it's, you know, every job that comes in, you could say yes to it, or every project, or every partnership, or
in order to get paid. to pay your bills. Yeah.
Exactly. Or
Yeah.
even bits of money,
Yeah.
funder says, oh, you have to really be sure what your values are and what you stand for, because it helps that decision making to be so much easier. So those are my two big tips. And they're just, I think that, sometimes I go, well, why don't you work in a corporate setting? Because there is a lot of similarities between the corporate world and what we do, but why not that setting? Why an art and cultural setting? And it's because the thing that differentiates us is sometimes we're working from a place of heart, and that's what we've got to understand. So some of that stuff has to come from the heart.
Yeah, which you can't always get in a corporate setting.
No.
Yeah.
No, not when you're selling computer chips. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know.
or AI software. I'm not sure myself.
Absolutely not AI software. No one wants that job. All right. Thank you. I have really enjoyed this. I'm really excited to do all the other interviews now. I'm like, oh, let's see what everyone else has to say. So thanks very much for that. And yeah, I'll let you get on with your day. Take care. And
Thank you so much, Sophia. Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.